Okay, so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. So there are three things that I'll be talking about. The first thing is entrepreneurship, the second thing is innovation, and the third thing is creativity. So there is a first question to all of you, and you can respond by showing your hands. How many of you in the room think that creativity can be taught? Put your hands up. How many of you in the room think that creativity can be taught? If you think that you can learn creativity or somebody can teach you creativity, put your hands up. Okay. How many of you think creativity cannot be taught? Thank God. So how many of you think creativity cannot be taught? There are still some people who did not raise their hands. So is that a very diplomatic response? Depends. Is that kind of a response is that? So let me put the question again. How many of you in the room can swim? Put your hands up. Swim, proper swimming, not in the bathtub, but in the swimming pool or in the river. Put your hand up straight, include the people on the dais also. Yes. If you can swim, put your hand up. Ma'am, there, you can't swim. That's okay. If you can swim, put your hand up. Okay. How many of you cannot swim? Put your hand up now. Okay. That's interesting. So the house is half divided. Now, do you think that the people who cannot swim are designed not to swim? No. Is it so? That the people who cannot swim are designed not to swim? Everybody can swim, isn't it? Now, why do you think that there are few people amongst you who can swim and others who cannot swim? What is the reason for that? Because? Speak out, you can shout out. Because? You trained, you learned, and you tried? Practice? Somebody taught you? What else? Interest? You are scared? Or maybe somebody pushed you. As simple as that. So you learned. Now replace this word swimming with creativity for a moment. The way each one of you is born with the ability to swim, but few of you choose to swim because you practice, you become better at it. Correct? Or maybe somebody trains you, you have the courage, you have the patience, you have the endurance, etc., etc., etc. All the reasons why somebody is a good swimmer is exactly the reason why somebody is more creative than somebody else. So we are all born to be creative. Please understand that. The very fact that human beings have survived for so long, and many of us are sitting in this room today, and the very fact, obviously this could be argued, the very fact that humans are perhaps one of the most powerful species on the surface of earth, aren't we? Aren't we one of the most powerful species? We may not have the speed of a panther or the venom of a snake or the strength of a horse, but we have something called, what is this? The brain. The biggest organ or the strongest organ that humans have is our brain. Brain consumes 20% of our energy at 8% of our weight. That's how powerful this thing is. And what is evolving, by the way? Think about it for a moment. When humans are evolving, what part of the body is evolving? Hands, nose, eyes, ears, what is evolving? Brain. Brain is evolving. So the biggest asset that we have with us is our thinking abilities. Now what is creativity? If you think about it, creativity is nothing new to human beings. We have always been creative. From the very first time that we made a tool from a stone to do hunting, to the more sophisticated things that we have made that we are using right now in this room, we've always been creating. And let's not misunderstand creation or creativity to be something out of the world. If you think about it, pretty much all the things that you see in this room are made from the very few elements, 100 plus elements which are there in the periodic table, isn't it? There are close to 120 elements on the periodic table. Everything that you see in the room is made from the same periodic tables, isn't it? Which means creation or creativity is your ability to come up with new ideas which are useful and novel. Now what is innovation? Innovation is the ability of an individual to commercialize ideas. Right? So creativity is about generating ideas, innovation is about commercializing ideas. Now what is entrepreneurship? We need to understand the meaning of entrepreneurship. India is an entrepreneurial country. Make no mistakes about it. The biggest employment generation in India is not government of India. It's not companies like Wipro, Infosys, TCS, etc. Let's not make any mistake. The biggest employment generation in India is through self-employment, isn't it? Self-employment is the biggest generation of employment in this country today. And look at the Forbes 2000 list. Out of the 400 people who are listed from Asia, 250 are from India alone who have been listed on the Forbes 2000 list. Almost 100% of them run their own enterprises. Right from Dhirubhai Ambani's son, which is Mukesh Ambani, to Azim Premji, to many of these people. So entrepreneurship is a way of life in our country. We don't have to do anything. We just have to discover ourselves. India is an entrepreneurial country. Please understand that. Now what I want to tell you, and I would strongly recommend that please each one of you use your pen and apply that to paper and write some of these things that I'm going to utter to you. There are three important aspects of entrepreneurship which I want to talk to you about. The first aspect is entrepreneurial mindset. The first declaration which I want to make to all of you is that don't think of entrepreneurship as a profession. Entrepreneurship is not a profession. Entrepreneurship is a way of thinking. It's a way of life. I think the biggest entrepreneur that we have in our country today is our Prime Minister. He is commercializing ideas. When he was rallying for the election of being a Prime Minister, he was throwing ideas at us. And now we are seeing he is commercializing those ideas. He is implementing those ideas. But he is not owning anything. He is managing it. So there was a very interesting research conducted at the Harvard Business School. The research talks about how do entrepreneurs think? And the bigger question that we need to also understand is that can normal mortals like all of us develop an entrepreneurial mindset? The answer is yes. A gang of professors from the Harvard Business School, headed by Professor Clayton Christensen, who is a very big pioneer in the space of innovation, studied 400 CEOs. 200 of them were the founder CEOs like Jeff Bezos, and other 200 were the CEOs who took on the reins from the founders, such as somebody like Steve Ballmer, who took on the reins at Microsoft. They identified 5 traits of entrepreneurs. And I would strongly recommend you please write these 5 traits down. And if you have the courage and the will, because ultimately apart from the good food and the good tea, what you take out from this room are good ideas, right? The first trait of a successful entrepreneur is questioning ability. You question. You ask questions wherever you go. Human beings are highly curious people. Look at a kid. How curious a kid is. A child, the moment the child learns to talk, child continuously asks questions. Why do you think children ask so many questions? Is it they don't have manners? Manners is something that parents have to teach the kids, maybe to curtail their own creativity. Kids ask questions because everything that they see around themselves is new. The moment I see something new, I ask a question, and they don't have inhibitions. We also see so many new things, but we don't ask questions because we are afraid. What will people say? What if somebody laughs at us, etc., etc. So successful entrepreneurs are highly curious people. They ask lots of questions. And that's what Albert Einstein once very famously said, that the more important thing than a right answer is a right question. And in the equal breath, he also said that the more important thing than knowledge is imagination. Because knowledge tells you what is possible. Imagination tells you what could be possible. What is there in the future. So the first thing is questioning. Second thing is observation. Whenever you go to a new place, you go to a new company, you meet new people, observe their body language. Observe the problems. Look at the simple observation that made Ola one of the biggest companies in India. What did Ola observe? Ola observed that there are so many taxi services operating in India, but they're all fragmented. If today I want to travel from Taj Hotel to the airport, there are very few ways by which I can book a taxi and ensure the taxi reaches to me in the next 2 minutes. Ola, without owning a single car, made one of the largest companies in India by observing this problem. So the second thing about entrepreneurship is observation. What's the third thing? The third thing about successful entrepreneurship is experimentation. Experimentation means you experiment with things around. You experiment with the food that you eat. You experiment with the clothes that you wear, books that you read, movies that you watch, places that you visit, etc., etc. Human beings are not made to lead a life in a very certain way. If some of you are from this city called Chennai, you played no role to be born in the city of Chennai, isn't it? Your birth in the city of Chennai was completely accidental. So why should you limit yourself to the city of Chennai? That's what Edward de Bono once very famously said, that if you do not want to change your mind, why have one? Why should you have your mind if you don't want to change your mind? Experimentation allows you to change things. Experimentation is perhaps the fastest way to learn something new. That's why kids in the higher secondary schools and the secondary school love the practical labs of physics and chemistry more than the theory. Even if there is an H2SO4, the sulfuric acid, that can burn them, but still they play with it. Because experimentation is fun. So the third thing is experimentation. What's the fourth thing? The fourth thing about successful entrepreneurship is networking. When you came to this room today morning, there is a very high probability that there are more number of people whom you do not know than the people whom you know. What is the fun if you leave the room at 6 o'clock by knowing the same number of people whom you knew at the start of the day? What is the point in coming to this place? You didn't come to listen to us only. You didn't come to taste the food or to escape from the scorching heat of Chennai. I think you came here to meet people. One thing that you need to remember is that the solitary genius of Albert Einstein or Thomas Alva Edison or even Steve Jobs exists only in books. In reality, there is always a team of people that work together. We celebrate the solitary genius, but we often mistake them and we assume that there is no team. So what I want you to remember and etch in your mind, if not in a notebook, is that your network is your net worth. Nobody cares how much money you have in your bank. If you don't have people around you who can give you ideas, who can give you talent, and who can give you funding. Ideas, talent, and capital. That's why you need network for. If people can give you these three things, even if you don't have a single penny in your bank, you can still materialize ideas. That's the power of network. And the last thing about entrepreneurship is called association. Association means that you talk about your mind not in the form of compartments, but your mind is a very fertile place where connections can form on the fly. For example, you hear something in the conference today, you go out, you meet somebody there, you read a book, you read a magazine, you watch something in the television, you go and watch a movie, you talk to your friend. At the end of the day, can you sit back and put all these things together in a web, in a comprehensive web, and make the associations? That is how mind works. The non-creative types or the non-entrepreneurial types always compartmentalize their mind. This is home, this is office, this is book, this is cinema, this is conference. It doesn't work that way. Our mind is a comprehensive whole. So I'll sum up my talk by only giving you these 5 tips and with a short story. The 5 tips were questioning. If you're not written down, please do, for God's sake. Questioning, observation, then experimentation, then networking, and the last thing is, my request to you is that when we have a tea break next, whenever it happens in the next half an hour or so, you should ensure that you at least meet 10 new people today before you go back home. If you don't meet 10 new people today before you go back home, your coming to this conference is only half worth. Only half. And please mind it, as much as you want to talk to somebody, somebody else also wants to talk to you. Remember this thing. But the problem is, who should start first? And be proactive. Because when you are the first person to start a conversation, what happens is that you always have an upper hand. You set the context. You set the agenda. You guide the discourse of the conversation. So the story which I want to conclude my talk with is as follows. Long back, it was 1999, not that long back also, there was a guy by the name Subrata Bagchi. Subrata Bagchi was a great founder of this company called Mindtree. And Subrata used to work in a company called Wipro. Subrata worked in Wipro from about 1986 to 1999. It was the last day that Subrata Bagchi was in Wipro. He already resigned from Wipro. The next day he was supposed to found a company called Mindtree along with his colleague Ashok Soota. Azim Premji walked up to Subrata Bakchi's room. So imagine Subrata Bakchi was sitting in his room, Azim Premji walks up to Subrata Bakchi. And Azim Premji pats on Subrata Bakchi's back saying that, hey Bakchi, why leaving Wipro? I think we are doing good job here. Together we have grown the company to becoming almost $1 billion company now. So why should you stay back in Wipro? What's the problem? Azim Premji, persisted. Bakshi said, well, Premji, the problem is that what I say, you don't seem to understand. What you say, I don't seem to understand. Our mentalities just don't match. So I think the best is that we part our ways. I go my way and you go your way. To which Mr. Premji says to Subrata Bakchi, and please note this one, Premji says that if I have to think like you, and if you have to think like me, why do I need you? I need you precisely because you don't think like me. Now that's a hallmark of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur is always comfortable working with people who make them feel uncomfortable. If you always try to work with people who are from your same community, from your same college, from your same society, your same part of the country, native language, etc., etc., what new are you learning from them? Nothing. Because they're not pushing you. They're not making you uncomfortable. So the hallmark of entrepreneurship is tolerance for ambiguity, tolerance for diversity. And that's one big reason why Israel happens to be one of the most innovative countries in the world. I can't think of a B school coming from Israel, however. So we perhaps don't need B schools for entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has to be the way of life in this country also. Right? Make sense? So thanks for your time. Appreciate that.